Today, we're back with Unintended Consequences, episode 33, for June 18th, 2026. This is a show about what happens when smart, well meaning people try to fix something and the world fixes back. In a small apartment in Orange, New Jersey, in 1922, a 22-year-old dial painter named Grace Fryer noticed her teeth loosening and her jaw aching. She had spent 4 years at the United States Radium Corporation applying a luminous paint that contained radium. The paint made military watches and instruments readable at night. Supervisors had shown the young woman how to keep a fine point on each brush by drawing the bristles between their lips. That technique delivered a small daily dose of the radioactive material straight into their mouths. Over hundreds of shifts, the repeated motion meant the bristles passed her lips dozens of times each hour, and because the paint contained radium salts mixed with zinc sulfide, the dose accumulated without any outward sign at first. Radium had been isolated by Marie and Pierre Curie in 1898. It entered commercial use because it emitted a steady glow without external power. During World War I, military planners needed reliable luminous markings on aircraft instruments, ship compasses, and trench watches. Troops had to operate in darkness. Factories therefore mixed radium salts with zinc sulfide to create paint that would shine for years. The companies viewed the material as both a technical solution and a public good. Early medical literature had even explored radium as a possible treatment for certain tumors. That reinforced the sense that the element was beneficial when handled properly. One obvious objection at the time was whether any risk existed at all, because the only documented problem involved skin burns from handling large research quantities. Smaller amounts in paint seemed harmless by comparison, and the wartime need for readable dials in low light outweighed any unmeasured internal hazard. By 1917, the United States Radium Corporation in Orange and the Radium Dial Company in Ottawa, Illinois, were hiring dozens of young women, many still in their teens, to paint dials at piecework rates. The work required steady hands and speed. Foreman therefore taught the lip pointing method as standard practice. Production records from the Orange plant show thousands of dials completed each week. The glowing watches reach both military contracts and civilian markets. Company physicians occasionally examined the workers. Those examinations focused on general fitness rather than radiation exposure. At the time, the only widely recognized hazard of radium was the skin burns suffered by researchers who handled large quantities. If someone asked why the piece rate system itself mattered, the arithmetic is straightforward. Each additional dial meant a few more cents, so any technique that let a painter finish one more instrument per hour was adopted immediately, and lip pointing saved the seconds that would otherwise be spent reshaping bristles by hand. The radium that lodged in bone and jaw tissue emitted alpha particles continuously. It destroyed surrounding tissue and eventually caused necrosis. By 1924, several Orange workers had developed severe anemia and holes in their jawbones. Dentists removed teeth and sections of bone without stopping the decay. Grace Fryer and 4 colleagues filed suit in 1927 after learning their conditions were linked to the paint. Internal company documents later showed that management had received warnings from a Harvard physiologist in 1924. The company continued the lip-pointing instruction anyway. The 5 plaintiffs received modest settlements in 1928. By then, at least 30 former dial painters had died. Many more carried lifelong injuries. The causal chain was straightforward. An incentive system rewarded speed. Incomplete knowledge of alpha particle effects inside the body turned a precision technique into a slow, cumulative poison. One might wonder whether simply washing hands would have changed the outcome. Because alpha particles travel only short distances, external cleaning offered little protection once the material had already been swallowed in tiny daily increments, and the particles remained embedded in bone, where they continued emitting for years. The New Jersey cases prompted state labor departments to ban lip pointing. They required safer application methods instead. In 1934, the federal government established the first occupational exposure limits for radium. Later lawsuits against radium firms helped shape workers' compensation statutes. They also contributed to the creation of the Atomic Energy Commission's safety standards after World War II. Today, the former Orange plant site is a Superfund location. Surviving dial painter records are preserved by the National Museum of Nuclear Science and History. No new commercial product has repeated the same combination of internal ingestion and long-term alpha emission. The timeline itself shows how slowly the gap closed. Warnings arrived in 1924, yet the practice continued until lawsuits forced change, and even then, the first formal limits took another decade to appear. When a new material appears both useful and exotic, organizations tend to adopt it faster than they can measure its full biological effects. Incentive structures that reward output while treating safety as an afterthought will reliably produce workarounds that later prove costly. Modern regulators still confront the same pattern with engineered nanomaterials and certain medical isotopes. Early enthusiasm outpaces longitudinal data in those fields. Consider the current push to integrate new battery materials into consumer electronics and electric vehicles. What indicators would you watch to see whether safety testing is keeping pace with production incentives? We'll leave it there for today. Thanks for thinking through this one with me. If you know someone who loves a good cautionary tale, send it their way. And I'll see you tomorrow with another. And before you go, this show is part of the NARA Network, a family of daily podcasts covering tech, science, markets, and more. If you enjoyed today's episode, give Fascinating Frontiers a listen. The most fascinating news from space and science. You can explore the whole lineup at neuronetwork.com. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.